Hello and welcome to Games Past Prime. This is a show where I take a look at video games and determine if they are past their prime or not. For me to do so though, there's a couple key categories which I look at. Story, presentation, and gameplay. Then there's a conclusion section at the very end where I wrap everything up in a nice little bow. You guys have read the title, you know what game we're playing. Let's take a look at BattleTanx. BattleTanx was released in 1998 and takes place in the faraway future of 2001. So, needless to say, we are dealing with an alternate history here. In 2001, a virus has spread that only targets females, and at this point has apparently killed 99.99% of them. Well, that's pretty unfortunate. The governments across the globe decide to enact martial law and take all remaining females of their countries into bunkers to try and keep them safe. During this time, the countries start to fight each other over the females, and end up starting a nuclear war. What a surprise. This ends up bringing down civilizations as we know them today, and in its place, gangs start to rise up and take females and worship them as their queens. Griffin Spade, the main character of the game, ends up losing his fiancée during the time the government was taking the females. Now after the nuclear war, Griffin finds a tank, and decides he is going to take this tank, and march it across what is left of the United States to find his fiancée. We also find out that apparently everyone and their grandma has a tank, left over from the war, I guess. In this timeline, tanks must not use fuel because they are everywhere, and this is how the gangs were able to split up the land amongst each other. During his travels, Griffin will run into these gangs and try to free the queens from the gangs to allow them to choose their own life. Along the way, Griffin will meet like-minded people who only want their loved ones back and decide to join Griffin with their own tank, essentially creating a new gang looking to free all the females that have been captured. The graphics of this game are, well, to put it bluntly, pretty awful and really ugly. I mean, I understand this game came out in 1998, but so did Banjo-Kazooie, and that game looks way better. A good way to describe the graphics is almost like what people call a modern military shooter. Dark, bleak, and has no sense of color. That defines this game really well. However, not only is this game dark, bleak, and has no color, but it also tried to be ahead of its time by trying to be fully 3D, kind of like GoldenEye. Just look at this game. It's so ugly. And by trying to be ahead of its time, it also needed to add in the fog, so that the system didn't try to over-render. However, this backfired hard. I mean, you are in a tank where you can't see more than 10 feet in front of you, but the enemy can see you just fine. Needless to say, you'll be shot at quite a bit, and I have no idea where you're getting shot at from. This was incredibly infuriating. I mean, I understand this game was trying to push beyond 2D, but my god, this looks horrible. I mean, compared to Banjo-Kazooie. I mean, just look at this. They barely use any color, and the color they do use looks really muddy. I mean, look how colorful and vibrant Banjo looks in comparison. Alright, just so I don't get called out for unfairly comparing two very different games, let's compare this to GoldenEye. Sure, GoldenEye didn't have the best graphics in the world, but I mean, look at it compared to this game. GoldenEye may have been dark, but they would still contrast its dark nature with more colorful areas. In comparison, this game was only ever dark and muddy with really crap colors. To be frank, this game is not fun to look at anymore. Alright, with that out of the way, let's talk about the music. Because if there's anything this game did even remotely well, it's its music. Sure, the music is a bit generic here and there, but at least matches the game's kind of rock and roll nature by providing the rock-inspired soundtrack. It really does get you in the mood to really want to blow some stuff up. In fact, I'm going to let you listen to some so you kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about. The gameplay of BattleTanx is sort of like an arcade shooter. You take control over a tank to help defeat other enemies such as other tanks or turrets. Along the way, you run into power-ups such as the radar, missiles, health packs, etc. These power-ups can be lost either by losing a tank, aka a life, or you lose them when you finish each mission. When you die in a mission, you will lose a life, but there are various different ways to gather more lives, such as hitting a certain amount of points in a level, or by finding the tanks in the missions which act like 1-ups. Each mission has you completing different kind of objectives, such as escaping the level you are in, or by capturing the Queen Lords and so on. Alright, so I could explain the controls, but I'm not going to because honestly there isn't much to explain other than you move with the control stick and you shoot with the Z button on the bottom of the controller. And you have your powers, but you can use them with your A button and cycle through them with your B button. I'm sure there are more controls, but this is really all anyone's ever going to need. Alright, I'm going to talk a bit about the level design real quick because it made me rather annoyed. See, remember you were driving a tank, which means a lot of things can be exploded with a tank, such as cars and buildings and etc. Pretty neat idea, right? Well, they wanted to have hidden rooms or sections that have power-ups and hide them behind like those concrete barriers and so on, which can only be broken in certain sections? Like, I can blow up an entire building, but I can't blow up this sort of concrete wall and run over it? Like, I don't get the design choice here. I understand you want to hidden stuff in your game, but either have it be hidden behind buildings you can explode, or things of this nature. I know you can do this because you have it in other areas. Why get so lazy? I don't get it. Alright, let's talk about the mines on the ground. Oh boy, the mines. So during most levels, you will find mines on the ground, which do damage to you if you drive over them, so you need to simply go around them, right? Well, in some places, they clog up the path you need to move through, and they leave just enough room for you to move through the mines. And pray to God you don't get shot at while you're doing it, because if you ever think you can move and shoot the tank without hitting those mines, you are insane. The only other way you can clear out these mines is with a power-up that allows you to throw a grenade? Okay, a tank throwing a grenade makes a lot of sense. Anyways, you throw the grenade and it'll take a couple bounces and explode. Downside is that while you can use this to clear out the mines, the bounce and explosion of the grenade seems inconsistent, and even when it looks like it should have blown up a large amount of mines, it likely only blew up a couple, and sometimes even none at all, for what appears to be absolutely no reason whatsoever. Now I want to address the difficulty of this game because when I first started to play it, I found it to be not really hard, but it had a bit of challenge. BS challenge, since it only ever was hard since you can't see your enemies half the time, but that's besides the point. See, I found the default difficulty to be set at easy, so I thought I'd try a harder difficulty. Turns out this was a really bad idea. See, how does this game make it harder? Well, enemies know where you are all the time, and they hit harder, and you do less damage. Oh, and they never miss. This is extremely infuriating when you come across these massive tanks. I know they have a name, but I'm not even going to bother looking it up. They're more or less bosses of their respective stages. I come across the second one, and it never missed, and will kill you in about 3 shots. Like, I ran through all of my lives by stage 4 of this game on a harder difficulty. This is just absurd. It feels like a game that was ported from an arcade cabinet that was intended to steal kids' money. It doesn't even feel like it was ported well at all. Normally with these verdict sections, I try to build some type of anticipation, but no, I'm not even going to do that with this game. It is 100% past its prime. This game is absolute garbage. It feels like I found one of those really smelly dog turds that are just slightly old, so you can't smell how bad it is, and then you decide to poke it with a stick, and now it's stinking up the whole entire place. This game is bad. I don't feel like I needed to do those top 5s, but here, in case you somehow missed my point, I will list the top 5 reasons you should never, ever play this game. Number 1. The story doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's for sure different, but it's not done well, and it's clearly just there to explain why everyone owns a freaking tank. Tanks, mind you, that somehow still don't use gas, and this still blows my mind that this wasn't even mentioned at all. I know it's a game, but come on. This is just a poor excuse for crappy writing. I don't care how old this game is. I have seen much better writing from older games. Number 2. You can't see more than 10 feet in front of you because of the fog. I hope you enjoy getting shot at from behind that fog because it's going to happen a freaking lot. Number 3. While the music is decent and does its job, everything around it just feels bad. I give credit where it's due, but man, I feel bad for the music guys that had to work on this smelly dog turd. Number 4. The gameplay loop is just utterly boring. Once you get past the first 5 minutes of excitement from shooting a tank, that feeling quickly wears off and becomes a repetitive game that is not fun. 5. I would rather play Superman 64 than play this game ever again. So before we go, there is one thing that I wanted to talk about. And that is, this game was so bad to me that I didn't even bother to finish it. That's how much it really wasn't very good in my opinion. With that said though, this is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did enjoy watching the video, please consider subscribing, and stay tuned to the end of the video to get an audio hint at what the next game I'll be covering will be. With that said, I hope you all have a fantastic day.